Hello, let's have a look at the Temple Church sword by Red Dragon Armouries, and in doing so we'll compare it to this, which is of similar dimensions. Right then. Before I bought this sword, I looked online for reviews and I couldn't find a lot of information about it. There were a few on one of the suppliers' websites, and there's some disagreement and contradiction there about whether or not it's too flexible. Apart from that, there was very little. So in the future, if somebody is thinking of buying the Temple Church sword, then hopefully they'll find this review useful and it'll tell them a little bit more about it. Now then, they say that the sword it was based on was found in the River Thames. And they don't say when, no details are available about that, and I've tried to find more online and there's nothing that I've been able to find. They say it was forged between 1300 and 1350, which no reason to doubt that, and they say that the fact that the Order of the Knights Templar was disbanded in 1314 suggests, in their point of view, that it was cast into the river. I feel doubtful about that. Why? Because your knightly order has been disbanded, would you decide therefore you must cast your sword into the river? Doesn't matter. It is a type that matches with the era. This is from the historian who established the system of sword typology in the 1960s. His name was Oakeshott. This is an Oakeshott 12A type of sword. Quite long for the time. An early format of longsword, and I find it long, and that's something of a surprise to me because, as you'll see, if you strap it on, the belt and scabbard hold it quite nicely, but it's almost down at your feet, and people were a little bit shorter then in the 1300s, and it wouldn't be that convenient to move around in, but even more so in that era. Plate armour was very new, very rare, and I think if you're going to be going to war, if you're a part of the Knights Templar, you're going to want a shield. It's not that you couldn't wield this and handle a shield, but it would be difficult, it would be tiring, and I don't think it would really be most people's preference. But this is all just speculation for the most part. This is made of EN42J spring steel. It is very flexible, which you can see by bending it, and also if you apply some pressure to the pommel, you can see how it reacts to that. Although from my limited understanding of swords, that's exactly what would be expected from swords of the period. Now then, the scabbard itself is of brilliant quality, undeniably so. Very well made, better than the average wood and leather scabbard that you get for a lot of modern swords. Now then, it doesn't really matter how historically accurate the description of the weapon is. I decided to compare it to this weapon because this is a lot stiffer and it's made with a different type of steel. Although this is longer, the weight's almost identical. I think this might be just a little bit heavier, and I'm going to weigh them when I get them outside. The tapering of this and the longer furrow would explain why it's somewhat, I think, we'll find easier to handle than this, although it's a little bit longer. This is by United Cutlery. They call it a broadsword, which I'm dubious about. I am not an expert in swords by any means. I'm learning as I go along. But I expect a broadsword, which I don't have, to be a lot more like this, except this is a backsword by Cold Steel, except it would be symmetrical and it would have an edge on both sides, and it would be just a little bit broader than this. So their claim that it's a broadsword I'm dubious about, but it doesn't really matter. The problem with this weapon, it's not a review about this sword, is the rubber hilt, there's movement in it. I had noticed a while ago, every time I pick it up, start to swing it around, I'll always feel it move once or twice. Generally, it was stable after that, but now I can feel a little movement in it. It's clearly not going to come off. It's not loose in particular, but the movement is distracting. Now, I think it's very good for the price. It's worth noting that some people say that the Night Shop use these or these, this is by Lansky, this is AccuSharp, to sharpen the blades. If you know a bit more about swords than I did, you know that you don't use these for a sword, do it properly or you're going to regret it. I did ruin a blade with these and I will make a video later on. Now I repent, I bought 2 decent quality whetstones and I'll try to recover the sword and I'll probably make a video about that. Hasn't been anywhere near this, fortunately. This is just as it came, sharpened by them. I'm almost sure this was done with a grinding machine. It's reasonable. It could be neater. Little bit of impact on the blade itself there. Not terrible. All I've done to it since I bought it was give it a little bit of a buff on each edge, perhaps just 20 strokes with a sanding block. So when I use this outside, it will be just as sharp as it was when it came. Right then, I think that's enough about the weapons. So let's go outside and give them a try. Now, before I go ahead, I will just mention a few more things about the Night Shop, and that's the supplier I bought this from. I can't really say anything bad about them. It's the first sword I bought from them. I'm pretty sure it was 195 when I bought it. If you want to buy this Temple Church sword, then search for Temple Church sword. Look at a few different British suppliers. You'll see the text I mentioned come up on each of them and choose the best price. The only thing I don't like about the Night Shop is their website. It's absolutely awful. It's clumsy and you have to wait a while for things to load. Maybe it's not their fault. But as a supplier, they're honest. I had a bit of difficulty with one item being out of stock. Communication was fine. No problems were caused. So I can't complain about them. Right then. I, so far, have come some way in learning how to use a backsword and a sabre. I'm not going to dazzle anybody with my ability with a long sword, but we can just see how it feels. And of course, prodding a stick hanging from a chain isn't a very good way to test one. Despite its size, it moves fairly well. It's okay one-handed, but here's about 40 seconds in. I can feel that. It aches a bit. I don't think I could do this for 10 minutes. And if I was forced to use it for a while, then I'd soon be changing two-handed. Now, in particular, on the reviews, on the Night Shop's website, people are concerned about how flexible it is, and I've shown you it is very flexible. Somebody said that going through standard manoeuvres, you can feel it flexing. Well, I can only imagine that must be doing something that's moving against the thick of the blade. I can't feel that flexing. Maybe just a little bit, but it's not often you're going to be doing that. I don't see there's any problem with the flexibility of this. I wondered before I bought it, which again is part of the reason for making this video, but I don't think it's too flexible. And from what I'm learning about swords, it's exactly as flexible as we'd expect a sword of this length from that era to be. Now let's try the broadsword. Now while doing this, I'll mention another problem with this weapon, although again it's not a review about this. It's the scabbard. I haven't put it all the way back in, which is what reminded me to say this. If I did, I might not get it out again. When I've put it in for a long time anyway, I find you have to brace it with your foot, pull it out very carefully, otherwise when it does fly out, of course, you might hit something with it. The other night, I tried to do that and I could not get it to come out, and I'm not particularly weak, and eventually I had to hold it in my legs and ease it one side at a time by the guard. Maybe that's not a bad thing because you don't want moisture getting in, and if it's airtight, it's probably watertight. I was a little bit surprised though. This feels heavier in my hand. It really does, and because it's what I believe to be as much or a little bit more weight over a shorter area, then the shifting and balance is harder. I didn't do it for long with the other sword, but my arm hurts more quickly with this, a lot more quickly. In fact, that's more stark than I might have thought it would be. That's quite uncomfortable. And I'm used to hitting bags and balls, oh, that's sore, for quite a while. Right, well, I'm pretty sure it's heavier. It's definitely more unwieldy. Now let's have a look at the weight and see if I'm right in my estimation that this is heavier. I can't remember the weights listed on either of the websites. Let's have a look. And we've got 1895, 1.895 kilos. Got a bit of a sore shoulder. And now 1895 to 1595. There you go. We've got a 300 gram difference, which isn't tremendous, but when you consider that this is longer, then it's quite a difference. And what's most important of all is that tells us why this is so flexible. So you've got about 14 centimeters more reach, yet it's a little bit lighter and it's more maneuverable. And it's not something I would have considered before, but the fact that that weight is distributed over more length makes it easier to shift it than this one. Right then, that's it. So if I was pushed to use these for practical purpose, I would prefer this by far. This, I think, was slightly more expensive. That said, if I was to use one of these as a tool, whether that be cutting up pieces of wood or digging a hole in the ground, I would choose this because it's thick and it's very durable, but it's certainly not as easy to handle. And all that's left then, what video regarding swords is complete without cutting some things up? Of course, none of them are. So let's go and see what we can do. Let's begin with the United Cutlery broadsword, and that's not that easy to get out, even though it's not thrust all the way in. Now, I know this isn't very sharp. It came with an edge that was fairly dull. I used a Lansky sharpener on this. It hasn't ruined it. I think it made it a little bit sharper. I used a thicker water bottle, well, a drinks bottle on here, hit it with it quite hard, and it disappeared into the hedge, and it's been there ever since. So this isn't necessarily good enough to cut a thick plastic bottle with. Should have no trouble with this. Let's see. And again, I'm not terribly experienced, as you're about to find out. Well, that wasn't bad, although it's not all that sharp. That's, of course, a matter of reviewing the edge and not the weapon itself. I just want to make a couple of cuts with this, then we'll use the Temple Church sword, and hopefully that will appear better. We'll soon see. See if I can get more than a couple this time. No, but it was a matter of balance rather than knocking it off. Okay, that will do. And now the Temple Church sword. I expect this to go through a little better. I've had most success cutting bottles with this out of the weapons I own. Second most with cold steel backsword. Okay, let's have a go. Well, much the same, but you can feel, if not see, it's going through more easily. But again, this is just for fun, and that's a matter of how well it's been sharpened. The broadsword, that's 1060 carbon steel. This is spring steel. In this day and age, if you pay for a carbon steel or spring steel sword, it's going to be good quality steel. So there's not really much room to expect something that won't sharpen well unless you pay £50 for something made out of stainless steel that's really meant for display. I'd have liked to have got another one. One more try. Let's see. see if I can aim just a little bit better. Of course, could always secure the bottle to the stand. Seen some people doing that, won't mention any names, but that does somewhat defeat the object. Let's try one backhanded. Well, that took a little bit off. Can I? There you go, 3 cuts. Nothing exceptional. Overall, it's a good sword. If you want to spend £200 on a sword, you could do a lot worse than this. Might find it for a little bit more than that, maybe for a little bit less. And again, flexibility. Yes, it's flexible. I don't see the problem. Thanks for watching. This is my 3rd video. Actually, you could say it's my 6th because I tried to make this a few times, made a few mistakes with microphone and with camera. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me. Hope you'll keep doing it. In a few weeks, things should just get better and better. Next one will probably be an exercise video. Then we'll do some more equipment reviews. Thanks a lot. Cheers.